Hello, Podsmashers of the Internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-bit Podsmash,
where gaming goes to grab a beer. We are your hosts,
Penguin and Termite. I'm Penguin.
I am Termite, and we are a weekly video game podcast smashing together more than our beers, but ideas that you care about with video games.
Smashing ideas. Today, the idea that we are smashing and talking about is we are talking about skill versus time investment and which one is better to reward in video games. Which one is more rewarding for the players, which one's more rewarding for the developers, and whether or not those two things are mutually exclusive. So, cool.
Sounds like fun.
We'll be breaking that down, but in the meantime, we are where gaming goes to grab a beer. So today, we are drinking a very, very sensual name, which is A Moment on the Lips.
It is a chocolate orange milk stout.
It's very, very sensual.
Yeah, and the picture on the label is...
Yeah, they look like they got oranges in the corner that are like, they kind of look like a derriere, if you know what I mean.
Ooh, nice word.
You're welcome.
Nice family-friendly
nice
word.
pull, yeah. Yes, so the moment on the lips, it says, this smooth, balanced milk stout with the tastes of the holidays brings on mouth-watering thoughts of chocolate-covered orange slices, rich in holiday memories and anticipation, brewed with sweet orange and cocoa, and it is described as a chocolate orange milk stout. So chocolate orange, I don't know if you ever...
Dude, chocolate-covered oranges are amazing.
Not chocolate-covered oranges. Have you ever had the chocolate
orange
orange candies?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Where it's like,
them?
solid chocolate, but it's got like orange
Dude,
flavoring
they're
in them.
amazing.
Yeah, so this is what that's supposed to be evocative of. I don't know what you think of it.
I kind of don't like it, which is interesting because I'm very, very laid back when it comes to beer and like a lot of things. It's from the Parkway Brewing Company, and I don't know why I don't like it. And the only thing I can think of is there's a lot of porters that I don't like. And this kind of has that flavor profile,
Really?
even though it's a stout.
I disagree entirely. I think it's creamy and thick like a stout should be.
It's got some body.
I always feel like, I feel like porters lack the body that stouts have. They're dark, but they have more of a body like a lager. Whereas this, I think that this isn't quite as like full bodied as like another stout, like a gingerbread stout from Hardywood, for example. But
Right.
it's because it's the milk. The milk kind of adds that creaminess. The lactose kind of adds a creaminess.
That's what milk stouts do. And that's what I don't get. That's so funny.
Really, I'm getting that. I'm getting the orange.
Yeah,
it is sweet though. It is definitely very sweet.
Yeah.
And I like that, so
Right.
I'm going to automatically like this beer.
Yeah.
Someone who might not have a sweet tooth as much as I do, you probably wouldn't like this beer, but
Yeah.
I like it.
I don't mind the sweetness. That's fine. I'm okay with that. It just has a weird, maybe it is a texture body thing. I don't know. But it's Parkway Brewing's A Moment on the Lips.
Yep, 7% alcohol, which is what I like about it. I get the little booziness in the back end there.
A little bit. Just a bit.
A little bit. It's masked well though for people who don't like the taste of alcohol.
Yeah.
This is masked very well.
Very well.
All right, cool. That's our beer. What do we have to talk about and discuss today on the front end of our show?
There is some news that had come out. Some news.
Pretty, it's not like the most meaty news day we've ever had, but there's some interesting stuff
things
that's happening.
to talk about.
I wanted to talk first about the Famitsu Smash Bros. Tournament. So Famitsu is a Japanese gaming magazine, and they are hosting a Smash Bros. Ultimate Tournament with Nintendo, I suppose, sponsoring them in some way, shape, or form. The most important, that in and of itself is not remarkable, but what is remarkable about it is they invited many Japanese businesses, like high-profile Japanese businesses. I don't know if they're gaming businesses or not specifically, but they invited Sony, the Sony PlayStation team, to come compete. So Sony and they accepted. So Sony is putting together a team of their PlayStation developers to challenge Nintendo. Well, and these other businesses to a Smash Bros. Tournament.
That's awesome.
Which is awesome. Again, some of that
Yeah, that's really cool.
especially because they're two major Japanese companies in the gaming industry. So I'm tickled by the idea that Sony developers probably play Smash as well. They probably have Nintendo Switches, so they probably play.
I hope so.
And do that.
Yeah.
So.
That's really cool. I mean, we know Nintendo has got a partnership with Microsoft because Banjo-Kazooie's in Smash, to my chagrin. Oh, I was just wrong. I actually like Smash. I like Banjo in Smash, but I just always thought it was never going to happen because Nintendo doesn't play well with others, but they do.
They do play well with others.
And this is another example of that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think this means that we're going to get Crash Bandicoot or Spyro into Smash.
You never know.
Which I would be thrilled if they did. I don't think this is necessarily evidence of that. This could be just taken as like, yeah, we're having a fun tournament and we'd love for you to be there.
Yeah, they're reaching out to the people, the developers.
Exactly.
Not
I still
the
think it's really cool that it's happening.
It's awesome.
So it's kind of like a feel-good, wholesome news.
I like it. Hey, around Thanksgiving. How about that?
Yep.
So this episode will launch after Thanksgiving, right? We did that already.
Correct.
Yeah.
This will be the week after.
But it's still a holiday season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
So the next piece of news that we have is Pokemon Sword and Shield is now the fastest selling game on the Switch. I am reading an article here from IGN by Chris Priestman. Pokemon Sword and Shield has sold over 6 million units in its first week to become the fastest selling Nintendo Switch title so far. And I think it is outsold Smash Bros. Ultimate, which was 5 million.
Wow.
And
so the previous record holder, right?
Right. That was it. Yep. And
Breath of the Wild sold like what, 2 million because it sold the same amount.
Yeah, but the install base
Switches?
was way
lower.
less.
Yeah. But
so
I mean, it sold at the rate. I'm pretty sure it was like a 1-to-1.
Yep.
Switch to
kind of. There was more Zelda copies sold than there were Switches in the world, which was hilarious. And so now we have 40 million Nintendo Switches in the world right now.
Wow.
And only 6 million sold of Pokemon. So way less.
The ratio is less, but still, it's still objectively the highest, fastest selling game on the Switch.
IGN continues to just give you some perspective. In 2013, Pokemon X and Y sold 4 million units across the globe in its first week, and that was on the 3DS, which had way more units sold at that point in time than the Switch, although I don't have that number in front of me, and that's not a quote from IGN, that's Termite's take. So, that was some interesting news that Pokemon, despite... The reason why it's interesting is because despite all the toxicity...
The controversy,
and controversy around this conversation of Pokemon and everyone being so mad about... They even called it Pokedexit or Dexit.
Did they call it Dexit? I heard, what did I heard? I thought I want to say Dexgate, but that doesn't sound right.
It's not a thing, but you could make it a joke on this podcast.
I like Pokedexit.
Dexit was a thing that was going around all over like Reddit and Twitch and stuff, and like people were mad because not all the Pokemon were included. We've talked about it on the show, and there was some controversy around that. Obviously, it was the vocal minority, very vocal minority.
Yeah, there's some other things that, although I think that a lot of the criticisms were just kind of piled on after it was like the national Pokedex issue.
Yep.
Kind of lit the fire and then it burned. But again, you're right. It's a very vocal minority that even cares, all things considered. So, all right, cool. Next piece of news.
Dude, is that the third evolution of Grookey? Oh my gosh. Okay, so I stayed away from spoilers until this article on IGN that I'm reading to you guys shows a screenshot of the third evolution of Grookey, and I am so happy. I have Sword.
Yes.
I bought Sword.
I
started with a Grookey because he's a drummer, and I was like, I love it. It's awesome. He's a monkey drummer, and it looks amazing.
So do you know the Chad versus Virgin meme?
No.
It's like you could apply anything to it. Like they've taken it where they've applied anything to it.
Like the cat pointing at the cat, the thing with the people pointing at the cat.
No, that's a different meme. I'll link you an example. Our listeners probably know the Chad versus Virgin meme.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, I think that it was Rillaboom or something like that. The final evolution's name. The final Grookey evolution is the Chad, and the other two are the virgins. It's pretty
nice.
funny.
Yeah.
I'll show you the meme later.
Wow.
Okay, cool.
That's awesome. That spoiler was just ruined for him, but that's okay. I'm excited.
So next piece of news that I wanted to talk about was Borderlands 3 had a big patch today.
And we're going to read all the patch notes right here.
You're not going to read all the patch notes.
See you in an hour.
I will give you the quick rundown.
There's a huge list of patch notes, by the way. It's
the major
massive.
thing is they introduced some new content. They introduced the game's first quote-unquote raid. It's called a takedown.
He's using air quotes.
I'm using air quotes. It's called a takedown, quote-unquote. That's why I said quote-unquote. And it is, it's basically endgame content that's tuned for a group of 4 players. So, I don't know how many... I haven't done it yet, so I don't know how... They said they introduced new mechanics and new enemies. I don't know how complex the mechanics are, if it's just shooty, bang, bang, kill kind of things. But I saw the trailer. It looks really cool. One of the enemies looked something right out of Destiny.
Yeah, it was
with
a
the shields.
big orb with holes in the shield.
Well, it was a robot with shields, but the idea of having the 3 shields with gaps, and you have to shoot between the gaps and try to follow the rotating shield.
This content follows Malawan company?
Yeah, the Malawan. So it's called the Malawan Black Site, and it's a takedown.
It's free for everyone, right?
It's free for everyone, so you can go check it out.
Extra raid content.
Yep, it was almost like it's something that should have been in the base game, but they had to develop separately from the base game and release it later. So yeah, that's cool. New level of Mayhem mode 2, so the Mayhem mode 4, so you can ratchet up the difficulty and get better rewards. The other things they released were a bunch of improvements to things like performance, and they introduced some long sought after character buffs. So for like Mose the Gunner, they buffed the mech, make it do more damage, and the pets for Flak. The one thing they didn't do, which annoys me, is they didn't base it off of anything that scales, though. Okay. They just did flat damage increases. So I'm like, great, you're going to have to tune that again when you introduce Mayhem 8. You know what I mean? So I did wish they had done enough of something that would scale.
Mayhem 4 came out too, right?
Mayhem 4 did, yeah.
And that was part of this patch as well. Yep. And also free. So it's a harder difficulty.
All of this stuff is free. So none of this costs you any money if you have a copy of Borderlands. So a lot of interesting stuff, though, all things considered. Like, they increased the bank size. So I know they didn't do everything everybody wanted, but they still did a pretty big list of things that people have been asking for a while. So I'm interested in trying that out. It's nice to see them supporting the game. Though, again, as I've lamented here before, it's feeling very... Especially with, like, a raid, feels very games as a service-y. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but, you know, Borderlands has not been the most elegant launch this year.
Do we have room for Termite to get on the soapbox? You heard this already.
I don't think so in this episode. I do appreciate your points. You can at least mention the fact of the...
So to me, the most important
frames per second.
The most important thing about the game is to fix what's broken.
Yeah.
Like, why add to something that doesn't work in its original state? It was promised to PlayStation 4 Pro and Xbox One X users that we would get a 60 frames per second, 1080p performance. It doesn't even reach that. Go check out Digital Foundry's performance analysis. The highest FPS you're going to get is like 58. But for the most part, you're going to get like mid-40s for your frames per second the entire time, which does not meet the promise that they had prior to the release of the game. So fix it. And the UIs are horrible, and they said they've worked on it. I have not touched this latest update patch yet to see if the UI, it's so slow, it's so clunky. Like, the whole game locks up almost when you bring up the memory or the menus. This whole game is a loot shooter. You're going to be in your menus the whole time. A lot. And you're changing your skills, and you're spending Guardian points, and I don't know, that's my soapbox. Like, fix the game first before you add on to it. So
yeah, I understand.
It's so infuriating, but also exciting.
I still want to try the raid.
Yeah, like, I also want to try the new content.
They also announced I don't have this in the notes, but they also announced the first DLC was going to be based around, and it's going to be based around. They are clearly well, obviously they had this planned before the criticism of the new villains came out, but it's almost like they planned this, like, if people don't like the new villains, don't worry, the first DLC is going to revolve around Handsome Jack again.
Yep.
So they're doing I don't know if they're bringing him back. I know they're bringing the leak, or the rumor is that they're bringing Timothy, the doppelganger, the Vault Hunter you played in TPS.
Yep.
They're bringing him back, which means Damian Clark is going to come back to voice him, which is great.
TPS is the prequel.
Yes, sorry. Yep. But it's going to take place at a casino, and it's called Miss Moxie's Heist on the Handsome Jackpot, or something like that. Is what it's called.
Sounds fun.
I think it's a clever name. So it sounds like it's going to be fun, but yeah, that was announced.
That's paid DLC.
That is paid DLC. Yep. That's the first paid DLC. So if you have the season pass, or if you got the super deluxe edition or whatever, you're going to get that.
So if the game's not fixed by the time it comes out, then I won't buy it.
Fair enough.
If it's fixed, then I'll buy it.
Fair enough. The frames per second thing doesn't bother me as much.
Drives me insane. Fix it.
All right, cool. And for the last piece of news I wanted to talk about, I was pleasantly surprised to see a trailer for Half-Life Alyx.
Oh my gosh.
It's VR today.
Yes.
I had seen something about it before, but until I actually saw it, it didn't really sink in that, Valve... I want to talk about the implications real quick. Valve, like 2 years... Was it 2 years ago or a year ago? They leaked that Half-Life 3 had been canceled.
Yep.
And that's still the case.
Well, yeah, it was always leak and speculation and rumor.
Right.
It was never like an official announcement.
Exactly.
Because the Half-Life 3 has never been officially announced to be in development.
Technically, it still isn't.
Right.
It's
never been a real thing. Ever.
Right. As of right now, it's still not a real thing.
Right.
That means, though, this entire time they've been working on Half-Life Alyx, which is a VR game, VR-only game, for the record. Yep. But it looks amazing. I saw the trailer for it. It looks remarkable.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, the breakdown. Like, it's a full-blown game that the developers have stated in an interview off IGN, in which I will quote here, written by Matt Kim. Valve has officially revealed Half-Life Alyx, a full-length VR entry into the Half-Life series. IGN was given the chance to ask some questions, and one of them was regarding the length of the game. So how big is Half-Life Alyx? According to Valve, it's the length of Half-Life 2. which most estimates clock to be between 13 to 15 hours. It's not a spin-off. It's not a side story or anything of the sort. It is a full-scale campaign.
It is a pre-sequel, though, because it takes place between Half-Life 1 and 2. They have confirmed.
Yeah. Nice.
So it's a pre-sequel. It's Half-Life the pre-sequel.
How about that? Right? Because Valve has the notorious, we're never going to do anything with a 3 in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
We have Portal 2, we have Team Fortress 2, we have Half-Life 2, and
Left 4 Dead 2,
and there's 2 Counter-Strikes. We're never going to... hilarious,
they
right?
hate the number 3.
Dota 2, right?
They are not Trinitarians, obviously.
So there was some discussion about the developers from Campo Santo that are working on Half-Life Alyx, and some sleuthers on the internet, very smart people, noted that they were working on what's it called? Not Gods and Generals.
Gods and Monsters?
That's it. They were working on that. But all of their developer profiles online, I guess LinkedIn or whatever internet-facing profiles they have switched to working on Valve things.
Yeah,
and they noticed that. And they're like, well, what's happening with that game? What's it called?
Gods and Monsters.
Right. It was Gods and Monsters, that cel-shaded kind of game
so.
that was shown off at
Breath
E3.
of the Wild,
Yeah. All right. Just making sure I had the visual straight. So that was Campo Santo. They were making that.
Yeah.
Well, they pulled developers off that to start working on Half-Life Alyx, and now it's confirmed that that's what they're doing. So that's who it's developed by. And this quote from IGN that I've just mentioned, here's what it says. But in that regard, they're like the rest of us at Valve. People who played Half-Life 1 and 2, took parts of it into their own games, honed those parts into something even better, and are now bringing that knowledge back to what inspired them in the first place. And those of us who worked on the original Half-Life, who haul our wrinkly old selves into work every day, have been re-energized, and we're thrilled to be back in the Half-Life universe again. Our joints hurt.
Yeah, so it's crazy. I mean, just like...
Campo Santo is in.
Yeah, some people might not...
in.
Yeah, exactly. And some people might not realize that, people who didn't grow up with Half-Life or just don't care. I don't play Half-Life, and even I have found that this is a remarkable moment in gaming history just because of Valve's history, and they would make a good developer profile actually, but Valve's history and the history of this game and the popularity of this game, it really is a big moment for gamers. And
I do believe
I saw some comment on Reddit that was like, oh, so the reason we didn't get Half-Life 3 is because they realized they had already revolutionized PC gaming with Half-Life 2. So now they're trying to revolutionize VR.
Right. And that's a right point. That's what Valve has done with the Half-Life series. The first 2 Half-Lives that have come out have revolutionized some aspect of gaming that no one had ever seen before done. And the first game was scripted storytelling that happened real time. So instead of a cinematic that breaks you away from the game, it tells the story. It's happening in front of you, and the player could potentially miss the things that are happening by simply not looking in the right direction. That was the first game. The second game revolutionized physics, calculated real time, and using things like a gravity gun and buoyancy and water and actual material effects on the world.
Yeah.
Plus they introduced things like bloom and ambient occlusion for the first time in PC gaming. So revolutionized the way graphics are in games and how you interact with the environment and environmental storytelling. Now we have Half-Life Alyx, which will revolutionize VR.
It looks smooth. It didn't look like they were playing a VR game, which is cool. So,
and one of the things I heard, because I haven't actually watched the trailer yet, and I'm dying to get to it, but I listened to a podcast about it, and what they mentioned was apparently the hands are separate. So you're holding one thing, but you're shooting with another hand.
Yeah.
And you're looking in a different direction. This is the first VR game to really do that.
Oh, cool.
It's always been both hands are kind of interacting at the same time with the same thing, and now you're doing 2 different actions, one with each arm. And this is the first full-blown VR game that's not an experience or a rhythm game, which I don't want to diminish a rhythm game. I love rhythm games. But most VR things like Doom in VR or Skyrim in VR are games that have been ported to a VR space, and they're still bound to the original kind of controls with joysticks and buttons, but you can look free. The camera is kind of VR, not the game, right?
This was built built for VR.
It's hard to articulate in words. From the ground up, this is the first full-blown AAA video game experience, more than an experience that we've ever seen.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm extremely excited.
It is a high-profile developer. What I think is what's remarkable is it's a high-profile developer taking a extremely popular IP and embracing VR to its fullest. You know what I mean? So, for better or for worse, however it turns out, they are taking a huge gamble by releasing one of their most precious properties as a VR game. Locks me out of it. I'm not going to be able to play it unless I get a VR rig. So, yeah, it really is a step forward, a big win for VR.
And another interesting aspect that was also brought to my attention with the podcast I listened to was that initially when VR was new and exciting, venture capitalists were funding independent developers to come up with new VR tech, come up with new VR software, because it was new, it was exciting, and it was noted as a good investment. Well, it didn't really take off. It never hit mainstream, as in like not mainstream. The closest thing we have to mainstream VR is PlayStation VR, right? Yeah. Like that's the most expansive thing you're going to get. So the venture capitalists left, and there's no money in there anymore. So developers have kind of slowed down, and their progress has slowed down. The pace at which games come out that are extremely good, high quality, have slowed down. Valve is like Epic Games in that they have an extreme amount of money, and they can
they are their own capital,
right? And so they don't need like external funding to publish their own games. Yeah. So this is really exciting to see that Valve is sinking a ton of money into a new, like, to set a new standard for VR. They're investing in an entirely new platform. Well, not entirely new, but like,
it's effectively in a new way. It's effectively an entirely new platform because it's a complete. We talked about VR at length, and for all intents and purposes, it's a new platform because it's an entirely new way of interfacing with games.
Yeah, this is it. Like, if you're going to get a VR system, it's for this. And I'm actually disappointed that it's not on PlayStation VR because I don't have a VR space in my house for this.
You don't have and you don't have a VR ready computer. I don't have a VR ready computer. That's a whole different investment.
You got to build a whole computer. And that's another conversation about VR, barrier of entry, and maybe the PlayStation 5 PSVR 2 that hasn't been announced yet, could be something that we'll get this for. I hope.
Yeah.
I only hope.
Yeah. That's all right. Anyway, so we have spent far too much time talking about news. I know we said it wasn't a huge news day, but there was a lot to break down in each of those things. So, all right, let's go ahead and we'll do one of our segments. Which one would you prefer? Favorite things or DLC? DLC. We're skipping favorite things today. Though I will say really quickly, my favorite thing, because I have to it's a shout out. So it's a shout out.
All right.
So I will say my favorite thing really quick is I have one of the most generous friends in the world. He is an inspiration to me. And I came home on Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday. I came home and on my porch was a copy of Pokemon Shield. I was not intending on buying it for myself.
Yeah.
But my friend Justin, shout out Justin, you're the best. He bought a copy of me because he knew I wanted, and he's just one of those people who's like, I'm going to get you a gift, not going to ask for anything in return.
The very same scholar and saint that gave up his Bokoblin amiibo to complete a person, that is me, who he didn't really know very well, to complete the Zelda collection of amiibo.
Yeah, he didn't think twice about that. And
Not
he
even
also
a little bit.
just gave me a Pokemon Shield copy and expects nothing in return. So
the very same
awesome dude. Yeah.
Awesome guy.
So that's my shout out to my favorite thing. So sorry. I did want to squeeze that in there. I was hoping you would say favorite things. But okay, DLC, because we know we have fans. DLC today is, I wanted to ask, in the vein of skill versus time investment, I wanted to take it out of video games for a second, because we're going to be talking very video games. We've already talked very video gamey today.
Yep.
So I'm going to take it out of the realm of video games and just say, what is an accomplishment that you are proud of in your life that you would consider being a skill-based accomplishment? And then on the other side, what is the accomplishment that you have taken that you are proud of that is a time-based one?
Interesting. I don't know anything that I'm actually skilled at.
All right, I'll do mine. So I did a 3-week boot camp workshop for the summer before I got married, and I did a stage combat workshop
with Andrew Ray.
Yep. Yeah. A-Ray. Yep. That's where I met A-Ray.
We have an interview episode with him.
Yeah.
He worked on Borderlands 3. He's in the credits.
Did. He's awesome.
Go back and check it out.
So I have certifications in my house somewhere that demonstrate my skill in stage combat. I was a certified. The certifications unfortunately lapse every 3 years, so I am no longer. But at a point in time, for 3 years of my life, I was a certified actor combatant.
Yeah.
And the amount of skill that went into that, there was time investment too, but
but only 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah.
Right.
And the amount of skill required for that is probably the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life, and exhausting thing. I'm not a person, you know me, I'm not a person who's in shape.
Right.
It was my entire body. It was like my entire body sacrificed on the altar of getting these certifications. It was after those 3 weeks the best shape I've ever been in my life. It's like, I told my friend who is a gym rat and who works out constantly, I was like, I'm not trying to minimize your knowledge and your skill of exercising. I will say there are muscles that you don't. I guarantee you don't work out if you're not swinging 3 different sizes and weights of sword around your face.
Yeah.
So that was
It's
that
like
was
when
a
you do
skill thing.
housework. I'm like, I'm a fit person. I should not be sore from painting.
Right.
But my shoulders are wrecked.
Just a completely different set of muscles. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
What are you doing?
So that's my skill thing.
Okay.
Time investment would, I guess, be. I mean, I have a list of mounts on my World of Warcraft account that
That's
are time
hot.
invested.
That's hot right there.
Yeah, not the most, but it was definitely a time investment thing.
Tell me more about your mounts.
Oh, they're great. They're awesome.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. I don't have the most. I don't have the achievements for like the most, but I did have. I think I want to say like 190 or something like that. I was really close to the 200 list. So when I show those off on WoW, I'm quite proud of that. So
Are you?
yeah,
Me too.
yeah.
I'm proud of it.
Thank you.
It does it for me. You know
All
what
right,
I mean?
what are your time,
So,
skill and time investments?
My skill is something I've exercised very little of in my life is driving.
Oh.
And I'm actually a pretty good driver, and that was shown because
You don't say so yourself.
no, it was from in a racing situation.
Oh, okay.
Not,
Yeah.
I mean, in the streets that's debatable because
Sure. Have you been in any accidents?
No.
Okay, great. You're a skilled driver.
right, sure, that's fine. But also time investment. I've been driving for 20 years.
Yeah.
But on a racetrack, the Dimensions, the company I work for, celebrated the people who have been with the company from 5 to 10 years by taking us to Dominion Raceway, which is a Thornburg racetrack where they have racing carts. These are legit. Not like your putt-putt golf go-karts. These guys go 30 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Like, they're awesome. And I was a little skeptical of how I would do. I'm not scared of speed or like wrecking at all, so I'm completely fearless going into these things. I'm like, whatever, helmet, sure, fireproof sock over my face, that's going to be okay. I'm not worried about that. Floor it around corners, but not dumb, right? So I have a line, and I slow down and like take the line perfectly and race really, really well. And because I have no time investment, how often have I done that?
Yeah.
Once, my whole life.
Exactly.
I also went to the Richmond Raceway at the gift of my wife, who bought me a ticket to go drive a NASCAR. Again, same deal. I was not terrified of this 800 horsepower machine that could go 100 and some miles per hour, and I was already pushing the limits that they had put on me there with no effort. So I feel like my skill that I have no time investment in is driving.
Nice.
And I wish I could exercise that more because I feel like I'm natural at it. And I have extreme amounts of fun doing it. It's just awesome. Time investment.
Yes.
Running.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I have been running now for 7 years. I'm just going to go with that because I don't want to do the math in my head, how long I've been running. I just did the Richmond Half Marathon on November 16th of this year. It was the fastest race I've ever run in my life. I'm the most fit I've ever been in my life.
Nice.
And I continue to build training cycle after training cycle on top of each other and get faster and faster. And so I've run 8 marathons, and this was like my second actual half marathon race. Not second. I've done more than 2, but I've never actually trained and raced a half marathon, and I could just see the product of all of my long-term discipline that I've had over the last 7 years, keeping my weight down, keeping my mileage up, continuing to get out there and run constantly, performing at workouts, doing the intervals, doing the tempo runs, everything, and just build on that. And I had the most amazing experience, set a PR by 5 minutes, and I ran the fastest I've ever run at that distance at 13 miles. It's been awesome. So that's my time investment.
Nice.
Yep.
All right, cool. That's DLC. Yours were way better. Well, your least time investment one was, I was racking my brain for something I've just put the time into.
Yeah.
And I couldn't think of one that didn't also involve a fair amount of skill. That's not to, toot my own horn or anything. I just don't generally put time into things that I don't think are worthwhile.
No, that's a whole conversation I've had too. It's if you don't feel good at something initially, then you keep doing it.
Exactly,
And it's a whole game development thing. Game design elements are implied, but yep.
So the only thing I think of was I have just put in the time for certain games, and specifically World of Warcraft, and so that's why I picked that one.
Yeah.
But I liked yours better. Running is definitely is a great example of a time investment thing that doesn't, in my mind, have a negative stigma attached to it. Anyways, cool. Let's get into it. Let's break it down. So our main topic, we're talking about skill versus time investment. We should probably start by kind of defining those things. I'm gonna have a disclaimer. First, my first disclaimer is I completely understand that games by definition are almost all of them are some level of combination of both.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, games, all games require some level of skill. All games require some level of time investment. I also understand about skill most of the time, in order to build a skill, you have to invest time into it as well. You have to do it over and over again. So, therefore, I want to start with that and say, what are we talking about when we talk about skill? How are we distinguishing it from just mere time investment? I think when I think of skill, I think of a combination of talent, knowledge, like natural talent, knowledge or training. So that's where the time investment comes into it. You've spent time building your skills.
Right.
And I had a third one. I'm a Trinitarian. I had a third one that's bugging me.
Don't know. I can't pull it out of your brain.
Yep.
I don't know.
It was on my brain on the way here. But those two important ones. It's like a combination of natural talent.
Reaction time?
Yeah, I don't know. The bottom line is that like what I differentiate with skill versus time investment is when I say time investment, I mean you can do simple tasks over and over again and reap rewards. Whereas with skill, it's like there is a ceiling. No matter how much time you put on it, there is like a cap to how good any individual person can be, and that's that measure of skill.
Okay.
So someone is like, there's someone out there who's always going to be better at me than in first-person shooters and being able to time reaction, all that stuff. Like, whereas they have the talent. Whereas with other games, you can just put the time in, you get the same. Eventually you'll get the same rewards. There's no like level of like there's no ceiling, if you will, to the amount of what you can do, except for that time limitation. So
I think we're going to use a video game as an example to articulate what you just said.
Yeah, go for it.
Have you ever consumed yourself into a competitive first-person shooter?
A little bit, yeah.
Overwatch. Anything prior to that?
The Halo franchise.
Sweet. Did you play Halo 2 online?
I did.
This is the perfect.
So this was the first time I realized there was the difference.
Exactly. Thank you. This is great. I'm glad we can relate on this. So, like, Halo 2 had a leveling system. They called it rank at the time.
Yeah.
Where you rank up whenever you win, and you can potentially rank down when you lose.
Yeah.
And it was skill based, and each mode of the game had your own level. So you could have the 2v2, the 4v4, the deathmatch, free for all, the King of the Hill, etc. Each one had a different number, and I would rank all of my friends based on their number because that was tied to skill, because you only leveled up if you were good enough to continue to win. And so I got up to like level 36. The max level was 50, and after that was like these icons of like halos and moons and stuff, and it was insane to see anyone at that level.
Right.
There's also in Call of Duty that measurement of skill is ranked by your kill death ratio, and that kind of became if you want to skew into the negative toxicity of the internet and how people look at it, it's like the bro gamer kind of came out by ranking each other based on their kill death ratio, and that's how many kills you get versus how many times you die. Yeah. Because the ranking system in Call of Duty switched to a time-based system where you always rank up every round, but you just rank up faster if you're better. So, friend of the show, Ryan, his brother, I'll leave him anonymous because I've not ever told him I was going to call him out, was amazing at first-person shooters. He would just wreck house every single time. And you play with him, and he had this level of ability that exceeded... And it was like...
So it's that natural talent and then the training and repetition required to hone that kind of meet, and that's what we call skill. Yep. So there is a time component to it, but it's not.
Yes.
It's not just being able to put time into it. And
that's the skill highlight. Now, the time investment highlight, I'm going to talk about this, can also be applied to the same kind of first-person shooter or even like StarCraftian real-time strategy games where you learn the maps, you learn the spawn points, and you learn where people usually come from. Those take time. Like, you have to continuously play a lot to learn the general trends of people. And if you're in a competitive space and you're playing at the esport level, you're going to need to know what that team does. Right. And you're going to need to know why they do that.
And all of those games still require... Yeah, and all of those games, especially with modern game design, all of them are like designed where in order to qualify for a certain level of skill, you also have to have completed a certain number of games. Yep. You still have to quote unquote grind out that rank by beating a certain number of people. And then even if you're looking at the esports scene, you still have to do qualifier match and beat a certain amount of people. Right. That's a time investment. So hopefully that's a clear distinction there. So let's focus on skill for a second. What does it look like what does it look like for games to reward skill? And what are examples of this?
Yep. And we can't say examples. Exactly. We talked about Halo 2. Like, that was a ranking system that leveled you up if you were good. I think right now, in the current modern contemporary space, it's all the Bloodborne and Souls games.
Yeah, that's the single-player skill-based games.
Where it's just so hard, and you need to nail down timing. But
right, again, the reward for skill is beating the game, like finishing and getting through the game in those cases. Other systems, we talked about this with esports. We talked about this a lot actually recently.
Yeah,
various systems in place that like have a ranking system. They can you can quantifiably look at yourself on a leaderboard or a ranking system and say, I am better than them because I have beat them in one way or another. Obviously, esports are the epitome of rewarding skill in the form of money, cash prizes, and
tournaments and
fame,
sponsorship
and all that stuff. Yeah, that's kind of the highest level of skill. But those are external to the game itself. In the games themselves, you can reward it with cosmetics or, again, a leaderboard where literally
trophies and achievements. Those are tied to skill as well.
Exactly.
Beat the game on the hardest difficulty. Like, oh my gosh. I'm in the court, and this is where you bleed the two together of skill versus time investment. I'm in the court that every game is platinumable. It just requires how much time are you going to spend on it. It's like if it's ridiculously hard, there is a level of skill that is required, but to get to that level of skill, how much time you got to put in to get there.
Exactly. And so that's where the two kind of bleed.
I didn't want to I don't want to throw attention to that. So like, what are examples of time investment rewards now? I want to look at, so you just highlighted esports as being kind of the epitome of skill based. The epitome of time investment is Twitch and streaming. Because you're using the popularity of the internet, and you're yielding to a schedule. You are always going to stream at this time at a certain game, and you're trying to stay relevant. So you're just putting in the time, you're putting in the work in researching what games are relevant, what are other streamers doing, and trying to increase your brand, trying to stand out.
Yeah, the only difference I would say is there's a level of performative skill or marketing skill. There's to be a popular. There's a reason why not everybody and their dog is a popular.
That's true.
Streamer. Tons of people have, and this is where I want to draw the distinction in these two ideas. There are people out there who just have tons of time, and video games can actually reward that, and do actually reward just people playing and putting in the time. And that's where I want to bring out the term grinding. So you've probably heard us say the word. We're 115 episodes into a video game podcast. You've heard the term grinding come up. We are not talking about a particular kind of
derriere
dance
rubbing
move.
On.
Yeah, exactly. We were talking about, when we say the word grinding, what we mean is performing repetitive, simple tasks over and over again in order to reap some kind of in-game based reward. So that could be grinding out experience and leveling up a character. It could be grinding out currency or random points. Again, doing repetitive, easy tasks, things that anyone can do. And that's the difference there, is not everyone can become a famous Twitch streamer. Not everyone can become Dr. Disrespect or Ninja. Not everyone can be, neither can everyone become MK Leo or Zero, the two top Smash competitors. Like, not everyone can become esports competitors or become the teams, the Overwatch teams or whatever. You know what I mean? So
not everyone can be successful podcasters either.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's a level of skill that involves like building a business. That's a skill. Performance. That's a skill. Creativity. That's a skill as well. Whereas just putting in the time. So talking about time investment, I think the epitome of that is, I mean, gosh, I could list the games. The last decade worth of games have been games that they have, and there's been a reason that we'll get to, but so many games now are involving time investment over skill because they want you to grind, they want you to keep engaging. So
outside of the esports realm, that everything is time investment.
Destiny
rewards.
Is time investment rewards, a little bit of skill. World of Warcraft time investment rewards with a little bit of skill at the top end. Gosh,
Division 2.
Division. Any game that's multiplayer for the most part will reward you for just simply playing. Yeah, exactly. Overwatch will reward you for just playing it and putting in the time, even if you're not great, even if you're not good.
Borderlands and Diablo 2 or 3.
Exactly.
That's what I meant. Diablo as well, but Diablo 3 and Borderlands 3, they'll do the same thing.
Even single-player games like Zelda, like, they'll reward you for putting 100 hours into the game. The trophy and achievement system, for the most part, is there's some that are skill-based, but a lot of them are also just time-based. Put in the time, put in the effort. Researching just enough to do these easy things and get your reward. Again, it sounds like I'm presenting that as a bad thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. There are some things where it's like you do want to be rewarded for putting in the time. You do want to be, and that's not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. But I do think there are some negative consequences when we lower the skill barrier and increase just the time. So, with that said, Skill versus time investment, which is better? Which is better for players and which is better for developers and publishers?
They each have their own merits.
All right, let's hear them.
So if you're a developer, you want to focus as much as you can on time.
Yes.
Because you want microtransactions, you want DLC, you want expansion packs, you want season passes, you want people
those
to
engagement
stay.
numbers, you want to be able to show your shareholders we have this much of a user base, an install base. Yeah.
Yep, and because that equals money.
For the subscription-based models, you know, $15, you want that $15 a month. You want to keep them going back for that $15 a month.
Right.
For free-to-play models, like you said, there's microtransactions and all that stuff.
Yeah, you have Microsoft Game Pass, which offers over 100 and some games. Outer Worlds was on it day and date.
Yep.
Star Wars will be there soon. Jedi Fallen Order, I don't know when it's coming to Game Pass, but it'll be there.
Yeah, you want those games to be designed that take you just over a month, so that way you pay for 2 subscriptions.
Right, so you continue to tack on those $15 a month, hits. And you add free DLC added to Borderlands 3, like we talked about today, just to keep players engaged long enough to cover them for the first paid DLC. Get that season pass because you just finished the free content, so let's go ahead and do the buy one.
Yeah.
That's just different monetization models. And then, of course, you have the free-to-play with the microtransactions like Apex Legends and Fortnite, where you do seasons, you continue to refresh the game, you can do new chapters, you revolutionize something, you do community events, seasonal events, and you do all these different things to keep players engaged. Pokemon Go is still going.
Yeah.
After years and years, they're doing a giant community thing for the holidays.
And this is the point where you'll start to hear players complain about grindiness.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're doing the same stuff.
It's the same thing over and over. It's like a hamster on a wheel, or no, it's more specifically. And these are all of these strategies that we're talking about are all based off of experiments done in the 80s, I think, by a guy named B.F. Skinner. And they're called Skinner box techniques, because what he would do is he would put a rat in the box, and he would he would put like a button, and if the rat pushed the button, the rat would get a treat. And so the rat learned, if I keep pushing the button, I get a treat. Then he started to switch up the experiment and figured out that if you had the rat push the button and sometimes he wouldn't get a treat, he would push the button more frantically. And he would keep pushing the button on the chance of getting a treat. And he eventually trained him to push the button frantically. And then he it ramped it up by figuring out sometimes you give the rat a shock and sometimes you give him a treat.
Yeah.
And you would think, oh, well, he obviously would stop trying to push it if he got shocked. No, actually, he kept pushing it.
Even more,
knowing that he might get shocked, but he might get a treat. So that's like loot
boxes in a nutshell.
It is exactly. Exactly. So
what are loot boxes?
All those experiments.
Skinner's rat.
Skinner traps, exactly.
Traps.
And or Skinner box.
Whatever.
And so that is the last decade of time investment strategies in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's really it. That's funny. Skill-based rewards.
I did want to talk really quickly about skill-based. Yeah, because skill-based doesn't necessarily do anything for publishers other than the possibility of esports.
Right.
For developers, though, I think that it's good for them. It is good for them to focus on games that have a high skill cap for the sake of elevating games as a form, as a media form, as an art form. The more developers can do to create games that have a high skill cap, the more the more possibilities. I mean, whole genres emerge out of games with that test different skills. The first person shooters of the mid 2000s test the whole just trying to get the person who gets the highest number of kills. That's a whole different level of skill than what the battle royale scene is now, where it's the person who can strategize and have the Twitch reaction skill time.
Right.
That's a whole different set of skills. That's a whole different set of skills from the Dark Souls of timing reaction. You know what I mean? So there's and RTSs, the strategy and the moves per second. The more developers can do to create games that test different kinds of skills, the more games evolve and develop and change.
And my favorite thing, and Nintendo's amazing at this, is making games that do both.
Yeah.
It's here's the game Arms. It's a fighting game with long arms that you stretch across the battlefield and smack each other in the face. But if you get into it, it's ridiculously complicated
with all the different types of arms.
I'm terrible at it. For a long time, I was super terrible at that game, and it's discouraging.
We're probably both still really terrible.
Yeah, probably.
Now. We lost all of our skills.
Smash Bros is another example of it's easy to it's accessible. Anyone,
easy to learn, difficult to master.
Right,
yeah.
And that's awesome. And I love games that do that. That's great. It's if you put where you add the time element into skill, because if you take the time to learn the game, you can uncover new layers, new depths, and that gives you replay value without feeling like you're being milked.
Right. Even if with Smash though and Arms, quite frankly, I could still put decades of time into that game, and still I have a ceiling, a threshold where I'll never be as good as Zero and MK Leo. I'll never be as good as probably 70% of the people online.
Yeah.
Even if I practice every single day, it's never going to be that good.
Right.
And I accept that.
Yep. There's the limit.
Yep. Let's talk about players. Let's zoom in on players then. Which is better for players to test? To test and reward skill, or to test and reward time investment? And as you said, I think they both have merits.
They do.
I'll let you
drop your glasses all over the place.
I'm like my son. I just catch them and then yank them.
You were getting animated in your speech, and you flung your glasses off your face.
I was just so passionate.
Great.
I'm so passionate about letting you go first. Go.
Are you? Is that what it is?
That's what it was.
You sure you don't want me to just get out of the way so you can talk?
No. Talk. Termite, go.
So I used to be that gamer that would look at everyone in my friends list statistics and figure out who's the best, target that person, be like, I got to be better than him, or her. I have to be better than that person.
Yeah.
And I was super skill based. I would merit skill over everything else. I'd be like, dude, you're good, and there's no way I'm going to beat you.
I need to be better than you. Yeah.
Or either I'm never going to beat you, and I'm never going to beat you. Or you are so good, I have to beat you so that I can feel so good about myself. Those are all skill-based stuff. And that was me as a 20-some-year-old high school, college kid. But now, as a family guy with kids and married, all I care about is time investment. And when I look and rank at everyone else, I'm like, you've just put in more time.
Yep.
So my emphasis now is how to game the system. And so if anyone...
How to get the most bang for your buck in the form of time.
And time, exactly. My time to play games is so limited that I have to do the most I can. And that's where I put all of my emphasis on like trophy hunting, and how I rank everyone else, because I'm like, if I can still outrank others in trophies with the very little amount of time that I have, then I have married the true perfection of me being super type A, and it's all like irrelevant anyway.
You're so skilled at managing your time.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? It's like I'm terrible at games because I cannot put the time in. I'm never going to be that good first-person shooter, so therefore grinding out endless first-person shooter rounds is pointless to me.
You're harder on yourself than I think you're making yourself you're being harder on yourself than the reality. You still only play games that you're actually interested in. Yeah. Like, if you were truly gaming the system, you would only ever play the games that have the easiest trophies that you can get in the shortest amount of time.
And I actually don't do that.
At the cost of never playing the games that you actually want to play. So,
My Name is Mayo that costs $1.
Exactly.
You get a platinum
I will give Termite
minutes.
credit on the sake that he's not so enraptured in this trophy competition that he's sacrifices the actual games he wants to play.
Right. I play games that I want to play, that I want to spend the appropriate amount of time in.
Yeah, and you'll still play like Resident Evil 2. You'll still play and enjoy a game knowing that you'll never get the trophy on it.
Right.
Switch games too. You don't get any kind of achievement system in Switch games, but you'll still invest time in them if you think it's a good rewarding experience. Yeah, I can't say which is better for players, honestly. Like, I think that obviously money talks, and players are buying games. People are buying games that they can get some level of reward no matter what their skill is. Because nobody wants to play a game that only rewards you if you're the best of the best.
Right.
Like,
that's why those are free to play.
Yeah. Or I mean, even there's a subgenre of games like the Souls-based games that do kind of do that, but like they're niche enough that like they have their following, and then people who have no interest in them don't play them. But I do still think it's good for players to be rewarded for their skills. So I think there's a middle ground. I think there's you can design a game that really you'll be able to beat it and get the most experience out of it by just putting the time into it, but then has challenges you can do that test your skill in it. And there are plenty of games that do that, but
most games do. That's the point of trophy lists and achievement lists.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think there is some marriage there that it's good. But I do still think it's good. I mean, it's good for players to have games that test their skills. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That train them and teach them. Isn't that the whole defense we had about video games throughout the 2000s, which was it improves things like reaction time and stuff like that? That is literally training and teaching your skills.
Yep.
So I think games can do more to actually build up those skills. And I think that there's a middle ground of there should be a minimum threshold of skill that games reward. Actually, and not just should be, there is a minimum. God of War is still a game that requires skill. It doesn't require as much skill as Dark Souls 3.
Right.
It doesn't require as much skill as reaching the top of the leaderboard in a platinum or whatever in Overwatch, or the top of the leaderboard in Diablo 3. but it still involves a certain minimum threshold of skill to complete the game.
Yep.
So, like, and they do that. So I think that, and that's,
but you can
that's
also put on
good.
easy mode and lower that cap and just run through it all.
Yeah, that is also
like
true.
I may have done.
Which is, and that's up to you to decide what is the level of skill that you're willing to put into a game. I like to generally just play games on the quote recommended default difficulty.
Right.
So I'm playing Jedi Fallen Order on Jedi Knight mode, I think is what it is, where it's just like, this is the like normal mode,
right?
And I'm happy with it. You know what I mean? Like, it gives me enough challenge that I feel like I get that that reward of like, hey, I did something hard. Yay,
cool.
Go me. Yeah, while also not beating my head up against the wall over and over and over again because my timing is off by a fraction of a second. You know what I mean?
It is a ubiquitous response from everyone I have talked to that has played a Bloodborne or Dark Souls game that when they beat a boss, they feel so good.
Yeah.
And that keeps them going.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I will throw the controller through the TV and fear and frustration.
But I felt that even on games that aren't Dark Souls. Like, I felt that in God of War when I beat my first Valkyrie. Those like really hard Valkyries where it's like, yeah.
Well, the Queen was nuts.
The Queen was so... that was the only one that I had to lower the difficulty on. Yeah. Everyone else I was able to like level up in. But the Queen, I was like, I can't. I have to lower the difficulty. She was so hard.
She was.
But I definitely can feel that satisfaction of being like, yeah, that was tough and I did it and I feel good about myself. Yeah.
Yeah, and every platinum trophy that I get, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Like, that was really tough, but I'm going to keep going. Cool. This is fun.
All right, so let's talk about the dichotomy and how it's changed over the years. What kinds of changes have we seen... what kinds of changes have we seen come to games as a result of one focus over the other? So
in the early advent of the consoles entering the internet space, so that was Halo 2, 2002 was when broadband came out. It was kind of the norm for people to be online. It was on the PC gaming side with online gaming, and then consoles are now entering the internet. With that, you had a mass market appeal. Your install base just insanely increased really fast, and initially they continued the trend of rewarding skill. Right. It was just like, again, it was like any other tournament. Whoever is the best, whoever wins and beats the other people. And like, if you go back to the arcades and like the early consoles, everything was score-based. Yep. Like, what's your score? You can even play like... just an objectively higher number. Pac-Man or like even niche co-op games like Joe and Mac for Super Nintendo. Every kill gave you a score. And like, even though it's co-op and you're working together to get through a game, there's still a score number. Yeah. Ninja Turtles arcade games had scores. Like, everything had a score. So going into like the advent of the internet, it's let's rank everyone based on some sort of score and a leaderboard system. Well, that's not accessible. No. And so people got smart and was like, we can become more accessible to get more people into gaming if we invest in rewarding for time spent. Yeah. So that way those who aren't skilled or don't have the time to be skilled can still get rewarded simply by playing. Yeah. The epitome of that and the change, the crux of all of that is the mobile gaming market with free-to-play and the race to the bottom of getting your game into the hands of 50 million people tomorrow because it's free. Yeah. And then doing the microtransactions to continue to reward for time spent. Yep. I think of like Candy Crush. Like you can only play 5 times in a certain amount of time. You have to wait, and it doesn't matter if you're good. You waste your 5 tries, but you'll get more later. So just wait and keep playing, or pay money and play now. Yeah. And so that's the giant switch happened. Nintendo Switch in the 2000 in the TOTS. Is that what we call them? The 2010 aughts? I don't know what we're calling them. I call them the 2010s. Yeah, personally, which we'll have an episode coming up soon analyzing that. But I think the switch happened sometime in the early 10s. The example, because I'm contractually obligated to mention World of Warcraft and like every other episode. You already did, and we mentioned Breath of the Wild. I'll talk about it again. Check. But I think when a game is like that, is 15 years old and started in the early 2000s, like you're going to see an interesting evolution over time. And I do think WoW demonstrates this movement because it used to be you wouldn't even have access to the content itself. Like you couldn't see Naxxramas, the final raid of Classic WoW. You couldn't see it. You couldn't go into it and do it if you were not the best of the best guild. 2%, I think, of the player base saw Naxxramas. Wow. Entered it and played in it at all by the time Burning Crusade launched. So that is a skill thing. You have to have skill to get to... And there's time investment too, but you have to have the skill to get... And, the fact that only 2% of the player base ever even saw it meant that, like... What was the gate? What stopped people from going there? The difficulty. The challenge. It was so hard. So so people who are not skilled enough would get there... They would go in and die. They would have gear. They would have they would have gotten the gear from and so the skill threshold started even earlier than that in the form of
AQ, the raid right before it, few enough people were able to get through AQ and gear up enough to do Nax. But even of that section of that already small slice, 10-15% of players who were geared enough for Nax, only 2% of them were still able to get into beat Nax, kill Kel'Thuzad.
So the gear,
it was a combination of the gear, yes, time and investment, but still,
right. That's what I was getting at. It was like
the threshold wasn't just gear and time.
Yeah, it was definitely
skill.
the working together, collaborating as a raid, as a team. Right, that is the skill of World of
Warcraft.
That was the
threshold
its heart. And so you're saying the gear that was awarded in the raid prior to Naxxramas was what you needed to get. You had to be able to have the skill.
You had to have a fully geared group and then the skill.
And the skill to have finished that previous raid to even try Naxxramas.
Yeah, and then to have the skill to beat Naxxramas.
Right,
exactly.
well, that's a whole different...
exactly.
I got you.
So few of the players. So
I just wanted to...
they saw that, the fact that, again, they had spent all this time putting together this content and so few of the players got to see it, began that shift in Blizzard.
Yeah.
So that by the time the 2000s came around with Wrath of the Lich King, they had developed this system
2010s.
the 2010s.
Yep.
They developed this system of there's you can set the difficulty, you can kind of scale up the difficulty, and the rewards are better for the hardest of the hard, which eventually it was originally heroic, and then it became mythic. So then there were 3 levels where you could have. Now there's 5. There was Raid Finder, normal, heroic, mythic.
It gets crazier.
You can ratchet it up. The idea though is that anybody who put the basic time in, can go see it in Raid Finder difficulty or normal or even heroic. But the people who really are committed have to do it they do it on mythic difficulty. So they created a scaling thing. But you can even see the change from back in the good old days of WoW. The simple time investment you could put into grinding. You could just do it. You could knock out certain accomplishments in a weekend or over the course of a week of nonstop grinding.
Yeah.
But then they've changed things. Now they do you can see the mobile game influence of time gating that they do, where it's you can only do a certain amount of these tasks per day.
Right.
That makes you that basically means that no matter how much time you put into it, you still can only do it's like time investment, restricted time investment, where it's they still want you to pay that monthly subscription. So certain tasks you won't be able to accomplish for 2 months.
So slow your players down.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes sense. Make more money. Yeah.
Exactly. So just seeing that change over time of it's not just, WoW has always been a game about time investment, but there was also a certain level of skill required to even see the content. Now you still get rewarded for your skill being the best of the best, but anyone can still see the content that they pour hours into making these raids and bosses and all that stuff. Yeah. Any other thoughts about how it's changed over the years? How the dichotomy has changed?
It definitely has, and we fleshed it all out. That's good.
I think. We always bring it up too. Esports emerged as a result of needing a space to test.
Yep.
Skill and a desire from players to know who is the best of the best. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the skill...
And they both drive sales in a different way.
Yep.
So having something that's appealing that requires skill to get to and getting down into people's desire to be good and show off how good they could be and have that competitive nature is all based on skill.
Yeah.
That's going to make and then drive sales. That's what World of Warcraft relied on to get subscriptions in the early days was there's this raid that's potential content that we might do as a group of friends. Dude, you guys and girls have to get your game on. Let's go.
Good.
Let's get good together.
Don't stand in fire.
And so suddenly one guy who was interested in World of Warcraft, it could be you or me, is now trying to sell the game to their friends so that we could all work together to get to that content that we'll never see because only 2% of everyone ever got there. But Blizzard doesn't care. They made their money, right? And they're getting subscription money.
Or they hook up. There was the crazy, you used to have to apply to certain guilds. You still do, I think. Yeah, you have to, fill out applications online. Here are all the accomplishments. Here's the demonstration of my skill and time investment.
And Blizzard made money hand over fist over all this stuff. And then you look at the time investment, monetization, free-to-play, race to the bottom. Now they're making money hand over fist.
Yep.
Look at Fortnite. It's a free-to-play game. It's the most rich game there is in the world right now.
Yeah, so a simple answer to is it better to reward skill over time investment is it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're going for. It depends
you make more money if you invest in time.
You do, yes. I do. I would agree.
We figured that out as a gaming industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the results speak for themselves in that regard, for sure. There's just too many games. And that's, I think, one of the biggest shifts is where it used to be, again, we've talked about this, where it's it used to be in the 2000s, you just saw all these different games coming out, so many options, quantity of games. Now, the emphasis is on keeping you playing a single title for as long as possible. Yep. So it's a complete change in where it used to be we're just going to throw games at you and hope you buy all of them.
Right.
Now it's, we're going to throw one game at you and we're going to keep supporting it in an effort, and we're going to keep using these techniques to try to keep you playing, coming back.
Yep.
And so it's instead of trying to just, here's a bunch of wells, it's like, we want you drinking from our well and only our well.
Yep.
So, yeah. It's an interesting times we're living in.
It is.
But, all right, cool. Any other thoughts on skill versus time investment? Okay.
One more.
All right,
One more thought about skill.
Let's hear it.
Rhythm games are totally skill based.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, I don't even want to talk about it.
I'm playing Amplitude. It's so good. It's so fun. I love rhythm games. I was good at Dance Dance Revolution. I was good at Guitar Hero and Rock Band. Like every time I find a new rhythm game, Theater Rhythm for 3DS, Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm, it's awesome. And it just runs you through songs from the games, nostalgic, but it's totally skill. If you have, I guess I could go back to my DLC.
Yeah.
180% of nothing I've done for drumming is discipline and training until I took lessons late, but I was playing in front of, I played drums for church in front of people prior to ever having a single lesson.
Oh, nice.
And I could do it.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't the best drumming in the world,
sure,
but it was all talent, and it was good enough to pass, like, a worship song.
Sure, yeah.
Right? And then I took lessons, and then I honed my skills a little bit, put some time in and got better, but like totally rhythm games, if you've got a raw talent for like, if you got beat, if you got rhythm and game, and you can vibe with that, then go play rhythm games because you're going to be awesome at them.
I mean, every game requires some certain amount of rhythm.
It's just a whole genre.
Yeah.
We should do a genre deep dive on rhythm games.
Oh, that would be a good one.
Yeah.
I prefer my rhythm in the form of timing a swing of an axe or a shot. You know what I mean? Essentially all games, when you think about it, are rhythm games, but it's a different kind.
Right.
I cannot hold rhythm to a song for the life of me.
It's hilarious.
So, whatever. Yeah. I'm just bad at it. Or at least when it comes to like visually coordinating song music to that aspect of it. I
just wanted to shout out to rhythm games.
Yeah, no, it's good.
100%.
That's a great example of that is really truly. I can't think of it being anything other than skill, other than the skill of practice, like the time investment of practice.
Right.
But again, we drew that distinction. So cool. All right. What are your thoughts, listeners, on Pod Smashers, if you will? What are your thoughts on skill versus time investment? Which do you value more? Which do you buy games more? Like, do you tend to lean towards purchases that are time or skill? Yeah. And we want to hear what your thoughts are and what you think about how it affects the industry. So, Termite, where can the good Pod Smashers of the internet find us and share their thoughts with us?
The lowest barrier of entry to find us is through the Discord link that is in the show notes and on the Facebook post of every episode, every week. We are interacting with our people there. Our Discord is awesome. I think we have some great conversations there. It's like a giant chat room, is what Discord is. It's free. Just go there. If you would like to interact with us on social media platforms where you can post things to us or message us, we are on Facebook, Reddit, Instagram, and Twitter, all 80-bit Podsmash, 80-bit Podsmash. Go to our subreddit, create a thread, get people involved in your conversation with your thoughts. You can also email us, 80bitpodsmash@gmail.com, 80bit podsmash, podsmash.com. Find us. There's also our website, 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing page where if you want to listen to us on a platform of your choice, we have Google Play, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify. We're everywhere. If you want us somewhere and we are not, let us know. Please, please, please go to iTunes. Give us a review. The latest iTunes review is from 2018. It's been a long time, but that's how we get bubbled up through the algorithms to be accessible to new folks and to get more exposure. So if you could do us a favor and leave us a review on your podcast platform, that'd be great.
Great, awesome. We have a topic planned for you next week. I'll leave it a surprise till next week.
All right.
You'll see it then, so we'll see you then.